Let's be honest, fighting the Illuminate has felt boring for a while now, but this update finally gives the faction something it badly needed. It feels more varied, more alive, and much more interesting to fight. So the real question is not just what got added, it is whether the Illuminate faction finally feels better now. So what does the new update actually bring? Basically, 4 things. 2 new Illuminate sub-factions, a new mission type, and a new planetary effect. The first sub-faction is the Appropriators. They bring 3 new enemies, and they are easily the more interesting of the 2. The second one is Mindless Masses. That one is built more around already existing enemies, mainly voteless and flesh mobs, but in much higher numbers. There is also a new mission called Destroy Exospire. It has you complete 3 smaller defense sections before taking down the main objective. And finally, there are Exostorms. They add lightning to the planet, but more importantly, they make the whole battlefield feel more chaotic and hostile. This update adds a new planetary effect called Exostorms, and this is basically the new Illuminate weather system. It has 3 intensity levels, but the short version is simple. The higher the class, the more aggressive the storm becomes. You get more lightning, stronger wind, heavier visual effects, and the whole planet starts feeling much more unstable. The main gameplay element here is the lightning. On Class 3, lightning becomes common enough that it can actually chip away at your health if you are not careful. Thankfully, each strike is telegraphed first, so it is dangerous, but not random. And the bigger part is what Exostorms seem to represent. If a planet stays in a Class 3 storm for too long, it can be consumed by the Illuminate and leave a void behind. So this does not just feel like a weather modifier, it feels more like the Illuminate version of the Gloom, even if we still do not know much about it yet. Along with Exostorms, the update also adds a new mission called Destroy Exospire. At the center of the mission is a massive Exospire, but you cannot just walk in and destroy it immediately. First, you need to shut down its shield protection. To do that, you have to locate the shield access points, call down a data jack, and defend it until the overload goes through. If it gets destroyed, you have to call it in again and repeat the process. That part almost feels like a lighter, more forgiving version of the high-value defense mission. Once the shield is down, you can enter the Exospire itself, and from there, the goal is simple. Destroy the dark fluid cells inside and bring the whole structure down. And once the Exospire is destroyed, the Exostorm effect disappears for that mission. So this mission does not just add a new objective, it gives the Illuminate faction something it really needed, a mission type that actually feels different. A side note, the Illuminate also got some new structures and new missions from other factions like Launch ICBM. It's not a big thing, but they are good additions. Appropriators are easily the more interesting of the 2 new sub-factions, and the reason is simple. Unlike Mindless Masses, this sub-faction does not just remix old enemies, it adds 3 new ones, while also removing voteless, flesh mobs, stingrays, and crescent overseers from the spawn pool. So right away, it feels different from the usual Illuminate experience. First, the Obtruder. It is a variant of the Watcher, but unlike the normal one, it cannot call in reinforcements. In a way, it almost replaces voteless pressure, not literally, but in how suddenly it can swarm you and force your attention. The difference is that Obtruders are much more visible because of the lights, but they are also faster, ranged, and a bit harder to kill cleanly. They can appear very quickly and they require a bit more aim than voteless. Then there are Overseers who are using 2 types of Illuminate exosuits. The first is the Veracitor. This one adds close range pressure. It does not use guns. It charges straight at you and tries to kill you with its claws. And honestly, it feels like a better version of what Chargers try to do. Veracitors have clearer weak spots, their attacks are easier to read, and dodging them feels much fairer. The other exosuit variant is the Gatekeeper. This one is the ranged threat. It likes to keep its distance and fire with its twin cannons. It has a bit more armor, but it still has clear weak spots, and like the other variant, you can also shoot the pilot out. And that is a big reason why these enemies feel better to fight than something like flesh mobs. They have clearer counterplay, better readability, and much more satisfying weak spots. So Appropriators do not just feel like more enemies. They feel like a more complete version of the Illuminate faction. Less mindless pressure, more deliberate pressure, and a much clearer faction identity. Mindless Masses is the less interesting of the two new subfactions. That does not mean it is bad. It just feels much less fresh than Appropriators. The reason is simple. Instead of bringing new enemy types, Mindless Masses leans much more heavily on enemies we already know, Votaless and Flesh mobs, just in much higher numbers, while removing elevated Overseers and Stingrays. So the main difference here is not enemy design, it is enemy density. And because of that, fights against this subfaction feel much closer to a real horde shooter. There are more bodies, more chaos, and much more constant pressure, but at the same time it also feels less unique. A lot of that pressure comes from quantity, not from new mechanics or new enemy behaviors, so Mindless Masses does make the Illuminate faction feel different. It just does it in a much simpler and, to me, less interesting way than Appropriators. That said, it can still be fun, especially if you are using weapons that are good at clearing hordes. And honestly, it is just fun to see the kill streak count go up. So, does the Illuminate faction actually feel better now? Yes, I think it does, and the biggest reason is variety. Before this update, the faction often felt too repetitive, not necessarily bad, just too one note. Now it feels like there are actual different ways the Illuminate can play. Appropriators are the better example of that. They feel more focused, more unique, and much closer to what I wanted this faction to be. They have clearer enemy roles, more interesting pressure, and much better design. Mindless Masses is less interesting to me, but even that still helps. It gives the faction a completely different kind of match flow. More bodies, more chaos, and more constant pressure. Then you also have Exostorms, which make the planets feel less static. And on top of that, Destroy Exospire gives the faction a mission that actually feels tied to its identity. So when you put all of that together, the Illuminate faction finally feels more complete. Not perfect, but definitely better. I feel like the Illuminate faction can use more love. They are probably still the easiest faction, but they are on the right path. There is more variety, more personality, and more reason to care about which version of the faction you are fighting. And for me, that is the most important change. This update did not just add more Illuminate content, it made the Illuminate faction feel much less boring. And there is also the Void. We still do not know much about it yet, but if that ends up becoming a bigger part of the Illuminate faction, then this update may end up being the start of something much larger. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to support the channel extra, you can also join as a member. There are 2 tiers, and if you want your name to appear on the support wall at the end of my videos, join the higher tier. Thanks for watching.